Hi, Crossway Fellowship. I want to take this opportunity to let you know kind of what our elder team's plan is so far as we think about reopening and starting up gathering again as a church body. First of all, though, to do that, I want to talk about President Trump's announcement almost a week ago, on Friday, May 22nd. President Trump, and I've gone back, I've listened to his announcement carefully. President Trump did not reopen states that are closed. President Trump announced that churches and other houses of faith are essential. He also then appealed to governors to reopen their states, and he did threaten to override them if they did not reopen their states and use federal authority to override them and enforce that. Okay? So at this point, that hasn't actually happened. And there's plenty of debate, and will be more, I'm sure, if he were to try to do it, as to whether or not he can do it. Now, regardless of where you come down on an opinion of whether or not the President of the United States has the federal authority, or has the authority as the federal government to override local and state governments, or you feel that he can't do that, really doesn't matter at this point, okay? What matters is that he hasn't tried to do it, and for him to do it, the courts would have to uphold that, all right? If that happens, that will put us as a church in a different place of making decisions. But as it is right now, we are still under the authority of our Washington state governor and ruling body, okay? And so we have to respond to those laws as a church in those restrictions, all right? I also want to make sure that everybody understands that if that were to happen, if the federal government were to override our local and state governments, and we were declared by the courts of this land to be free to gather entirely without restrictions and all of those kinds of things, that would not necessarily mean that it's wise for us to. That would put us in a position as a leadership here at Crossway to need to make that decision as to whether or not it's wise. But it wouldn't automatically mean that that would be a good decision to make. Also, if that did happen and we were to decide, yeah, that's good, we're going to start meeting again, let me just tell you right now that it would take 2 to 3 weeks at least for us to have the building back in a state where we could meet again. Just think, this building has been practically empty other than me and some others coming here to record messages and stuff. This building has been practically empty for 2 to 3 months or whatever it will be when we get there. It's going to need to be cleaned. We haven't had custodial service doing anything. The kids' snacks are going to be stale. Somebody's going to need to go through and make sure those goldfish are fresh for our kids. So, there's a lot, okay, that we're going to have to do just to get the building ready. We might do some projects. We've talked about doing some painting inside and those kinds of things. We might be right in the middle of that and need to finish that up, all right? So just know that even if tomorrow the federal government were to override the state governments and we as a leadership were to say, yeah, let's do that, let's start regathering with no restrictions whatsoever, that it would still take 3 weeks at least to get this building and facility back into a place where we could start meeting in it again, all right? So just know that if it comes down to a Friday and you're wondering, hey, this announcement was just made and stuff, and are we going to be meeting 2 days from now? We won't be, okay? Because there's no way we'll be able to get ready and be ready that quickly, okay? Now, let me give you just what the plan is. You know that our governor has laid out a 4-phase plan for reopening the state, getting back to normal, however we want to describe it, okay? So during phases 1 and 2, as a leadership, we are beginning already to gather materials. We're starting to get hand sanitizer and hand sanitizing stations, those kinds of things. We're trying to find those things. They're not easy to get, and we're starting to gather those things have some signs that we think are going to be required for us to open. We're starting to think through the layout of our facility, what we can and won't be able to do with this particular facility in terms of keeping some social distancing in place and those kinds of things, all right. When it comes to phase 3, it's phase 3 where we can begin to meet again in groups smaller than 50 people, 50 and smaller. And so when that takes place, it's our goal to be able to begin to meet again, okay? How exactly we'll do that, we haven't determined. We don't know if we're gonna, put groups of people in different rooms throughout the building so that there's enough distancing between families and so on. We don't know if we'll just have multiple services where we ask everyone to kind of sign up for a service for that week. We are going to continue to live stream even after we can gather again. So people, for those who are maybe uncomfortable meeting, or for a portion who can't get to one of those 2 or 3 services, or however we do it, you'll still be able to access our messages and worship online, okay? So we've got the technology. We've invested a lot in putting this together, not only in terms of equipment, but also in terms of just know-how, all right, and experience. And so we'll continue to do that as a church. Now, once we get to phase 4 and groups of over 50 can meet, of course, we will do our best to start meeting again. I mean, that's our desire. And by that time, and I think it could be a while, it could be another several months before that phase opens, by that time we'll be ready. Okay, we'll be ready for the whole church to be able to meet together. So I just want you to understand that we are planning, okay, we are working toward those things. At the pace at which we're going, we still have plenty of time. When they give us a date, and they won't just drop it on us, say, hey, by the way, phase 3 is going to start tomorrow. When they give us a date, we will begin to communicate to you as a church, hey, we'll be ready by date such and such to begin to meet again, okay? And it won't be a tomorrow kind of thing. It'll be 2 to 3 weeks of notice, okay? And you'll know when we're ready to meet again. Hey, as a leadership, we love you guys. We are excited to come back together as a church, even if it's another couple of months. That's the desire of our hearts and really where we want to be. But we want to be careful. We want to do this right. We don't want to be fearful, and I can tell you right now, I'm convinced in my heart that we're not acting out of fear and craziness. We're just being, I think, appropriately cautious, all right, and trying to as well honor the Lord and keep our testimony intact as a church in our culture and in the context in which God has placed us. And remember, our state government has not forbidden us from sharing the gospel, preaching the word. They haven't forbidden us from caring for each other or loving our neighbor. They haven't put any constraints on churches that they haven't put on businesses. Yes, there are some inconsistencies at point. Of course there are. I recognize that. We recognize that. But those aren't reasons for us to just shine everything and say we're just going to meet because the government is against us. We do not hold to any kind of conspiracy theory, even if there are politics involved, and undoubtedly there are politics involved, all right? So listen, hang in there with us, be prayerful, be mindful, stay in the Word, and we will continue to communicate with you as we are ready to take further steps, all right? God bless you.